Right, let's compare Alex Albon with Pierre Gasly. So, I just made a video recently about Alex Albon based on the current 2020 standings, the 2020 qualifyings and the 2020 races as of yet. There have only been 3, and I've kind of determined that, yes, Alex Albon is touch slow. He is currently within the top 5 teammates that are slower than their teammate, if that makes sense. You'll have to kind of watch the video, it's a nice little one. But I did say in this video here that I would kind of go over the 2019 data when Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon both drove for Toro Rosso and Red Bull, and kind of compare both of them against Verstappen and then against Kvyat in their respective cars. So that is exactly what I'm doing today. The first thing that I went about and did was work out the qualifying battle, the teammate battles between each driver. So for Australia to Hungary in the Red Bull, Verstappen outqualified Gasly 11-1. In the Toro Rosso, it was all evens, 6-6 to Albon and Kvyat. And then from Belgium to Abu Dhabi, Verstappen outqualified Albon 8-1, and in the Toro Rosso, Gasly outperformed Kvyat 7-2. So looking at this surface results, I'm delving much deeper into it than this, but looking at the surface results, you'd have to say that Verstappen is very strong, and neither Albon or Gasly can perform as well as that. But then you'd also have to say that Gasly, just looking at these 4 tables of results, that Gasly is better than Albon, as they were both the same against Verstappen, but Gasly was better against Kvyat. Now, we're going to delve a great deal into sort of times, differences, averages, races, etc, etc. So without further ado, let's get into some 2 graphs, just 2 to start with. The Verstappen qualifying advantage over Gasly from Australia to Hungary, with Australia being at the bottom, Hungary at the top, and then Albon's qualifying advantage over Kvyat, with again Australia at the bottom and Hungary at the top. So you can see quite clearly the Verstappen advantage is huge over Gasly in the first half of the season, whereas the Albon advantage over Kvyat is sort of, it changes, it has a nice sort of S-shaped curve to it, that graph, whereas definitely Verstappen on Gasly is a large domination in qualifying. And I've sort of done some averages, the average gaps as well. So Verstappen's average advantage over these first 12 races over Pierre Gasly was 0.562 seconds, whereas Albon's advantage over Kvyat was just under 1/10 of a second, 0.079 of a second. Now at the moment these numbers mean nothing as we've got nothing to compare them to. In a little bit we will. However, I will just say this, if we go back to the graphs, there is one little outlier, China, on Albon's side. It is technically a 0. Should be a number, surely. No, because Albon crashed in free practice 3, maybe 2, probably 3, and basically didn't compete in qualifying, so there was no time for Albon, so Kvyat was in front of him, but I couldn't get a distance as Albon didn't set a time, and that does crop up a little bit later on in some of the other graphs that I have going forward. No need to remember those numbers, the 0.562 and 0.079, they will pop up slightly later on in the video when we do a nice little comparison. So now moving on into the second half of the season, we've had the driver switch up, we've had the sort of silly season that it was, and the graph on the left we have Verstappen's qualifying advantage on Alex Albon, and then on the right we've got the graph of Gasly's qualifying advantage over Kvyat for the second half of the season. Now a couple more outliers on this side. On the left graph we've got a huge gap, 6.887 seconds in Russia, that Verstappen was faster than Albon. That is definitely an outlier. Albon had a penalty, inbound penalty, knew it was coming, so he went out in Q1, scrubbed a set of tyres, did a 1:39, and was 7 seconds slower, didn't even bother pushing. So in the averages we are going to be excluding that one. Japan, on the left graph, again, it's a 0. They set exactly the same time in Japan in qualifying. Doesn't happen that often, but it did in this case. Verstappen set it first, so he started in front. And then Italy was a farce. Remember, it was that shit qualifying that no one set a lap time, and basically one of them failed to set a lap time entirely, so there again was no time to compare it to, and that is the same with Russia on Gasly's side. So, similarly to the previous two graphs, we'll pull up an average. This average is including Russia, including my outlier. I will exclude it in a little bit, but Verstappen's average over the 9 races is 1.288 seconds, whereas Gasly's advantage over Kvyat is just over 2.5 tenths of a second. But like I said, that 1.288 seconds Verstappen's advantage covers the outlier of Russia. We'll send that one away. We do not need that one. We instead exclude it and divide all of those numbers through by 8 rather than 9, and we get 0.588, a much more respectable advantage. Well, do you call an advantage respectable? I'm not sure, but it's better than 1.288 seconds. So now we're going to bring all of this together. We're going to compare these numbers together, looking at their individual qualifying performances. So we've got on the left hand side Verstappen's average over the pair of Gasly and Albon in the Red Bull. Verstappen's average was smaller against Gasly than it was Albon, but only by 0.026 seconds. That's the type of gap that would just piss off a driver, because it's so small that you don't really know where you can improve. So that gap isn't a big deal. The big deal gap though is the difference that they had over Kvyat. Albon's 0.079 to Gasly's almost 3 tenths. And that was a almost 2 tenth advantage, 0.185 seconds the difference. However, important to note, this was Albon's first year. This was Albon's first year in Formula 1 as a rookie, and as a rookie to even out-qualify your teammate, to match your teammate of Kvyat, who's driven for Red Bull, who's been in the sport for numerous amounts of years before you, and to be 6-0 or 6-0, 6-all in the qualifying battles, and then to still have an average advantage over him, that's an incredible performance. And then again, swapping to Red Bull only halfway through your first season, to just be 0.026 seconds behind Verstappen's average advantage over Gasly, they're not bad statistics at all. But statistics do not lie. So technically, I'm going to say yes, Albon was slower than Gasly over 1 lap pace, and that's comparing them across their Red Bull performance and their Toro Rosso performance. But the key thing is it was Albon's first season and it was Gasly's second. Gasly had the experience. He knew Formula 1. Albon didn't. That's the key difference. And to be this close, Alex Albon to be this close to all of Gasly's numbers, yeah, it's good. It's a good performance from Albon, but yes, he was slower in qualifying. So we will now move on to the race performance. Now we're now excluding the Toro Rosso days, and we are just focusing on the Red Bull days. So Alex Albon's graph on the left, his positions in the Red Bull: 5th, 6th, 6th, 5th, 4th, 5th, 5th, 14th in Brazil. Hamilton punted him off, would have been at least a podium, and then Abu Dhabi a P6, whereas Gasly all over the place. The DNF in Azerbaijan, 11th, 10th, 14th on pace in Germany, that hectic race that Verstappen won. Gasly didn't even retire, he was the last of the race finishers. That was a bad race from Gasly. But quite simply, I've just worked out the average finishing position of each driver. Albon, 6th. Out of all of that average definitely would have been 5, maybe 4th, depending on the podium finish that he achieved in Brazil, but he didn't. That's motorsport. That's why comparing race results is a little bit harder. And then Gasly was 8th in the same races, and averages speak for themselves. That kind of discounts the fact that there are 3 more races in the first half of the season than the second. Averages speak for themselves, and clearly Albon was the better racer than Gasly. And my last sets of graphs for today is the positions behind Verstappen. So you've got Gasly on the left, once again. You can see there's only one time in Britain that he started in front of Verstappen. Azerbaijan, I'm not quite sure what happened. I haven't actually written down what happened to Azerbaijan. I think for Azerbaijan, Verstappen failed to finish, so again, he technically wasn't classified, so he didn't have a position, so there's no position to be gained, and that's the same with Belgium and Japan on Albon's side. But you can see clearly, Albon was 2 positions ahead of Verstappen in Italy, and 1 position ahead in Mexico. And again, done some little averages here, 3 positions above, or 3 positions behind Verstappen, for Albon, compared to Gasly's average 4 positions behind Max Verstappen. And I suppose that really does speak for itself. So to conclude, is Alex Albon really that slow? No, not at all. When it counts in the race, Albon is fast. Yes, the statistics prove in 2019 Albon was slower than Gasly. But in the races, Albon was faster than Gasly. Albon is what Red Bull needs. He just needs to keep that momentum. He just needs to keep slowly performing and slowly being 4th and 5th. Yes, he can have some bad luck. Red Bull had some bad luck in race 1. He just needs to ignore that pressure of being a Red Bull driver. That is the hard part for Albon. He is there. He is the right driver for Red Bull. He just needs to ignore the pressure. And there we go. A quick little statistics look at Alex Albon versus Pierre Gasly. I hope you have all enjoyed that video there, and I will catch you in the next one with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.